Well, folks, we're going to have a bit of a interesting conversation today about Nintendo because I am genuinely excited for the future of the Nintendo Switch 2 and just being a Nintendo fan in general with their IPs and the various things they're doing with Lego sets and movies and all of that. But obviously, everything isn't perfect. There are tons of things Nintendo does, as a lot of companies do, that are just not really great. More recently, obviously, with the raised prices on Switch 1, and I understand they talk about market conditions, and I got the accessories as well for Switch 1 and Switch 2 going up. Amiibo prices getting pretty wild. I understand some of it to a point. If you're a business and you're just about making money, that's kind of what the deal is. I want to be very clear, and I'm not really sure when this ever got lost in translation, but it has for some. Nintendo as a company is not something I genuinely care like super much about. They are a multi-billion-dollar business, and as a multi-billion-dollar business, they exist to make money, which is what all these big companies do. Doesn't mean I have anything against the people working at these companies. Doesn't mean I have anything against other aspects of the company, the game developers and stuff like that. Like there could be some things I disagree with when they make certain choices with games, but in the end, I'm not ultimately upset with that stuff. And I try to look at Nintendo from a business perspective because I'm also running a business. And I like to step back and take a look at, okay, business wise, why are they making these decisions? And then obviously from the consumer side, how does this affect us? Usually negatively. That's kind of the way decisions at businesses go. They're making decisions to make money. And the best way to make money is often to do things that are not very pro-consumer. That's not the only way. There's obviously ways to make money that are pro-consumer, but for the most part, to maximize and become as big as Nintendo is, you're going to have some decisions that I don't like. I'll give you an example. This is great for their pocketbooks, but I do not like that they charge for online. I don't like that Xbox does it. I don't like that PlayStation does it. To play an online retail game, not a free-to-play game, but an online retail game, from any of these companies, let alone Nintendo, on a console, I have to pay to access the internet I'm already paying for. Don't have to do that on PC, by the way. Besides like unique circumstances like World of Warcraft, you don't really have to pay to access your own internet, right? You can buy games on Steam, buy games elsewhere, and just play for free. Relatively, it's not free because you're paying for the internet connection and you bought the hardware you're playing on, but you get the point. Like they're not adding a service fee on top to access something I already have, and where a lot of the games are peer-to-peer and I'm just playing on their system or they're playing on my system. There are obviously exceptions with servers and all that, but the point I'm trying to make here is I don't agree with all of these decisions these companies make, and I'm still excited for the future of Nintendo in spite of some of these bad choices. But we got to go over the bad decisions and the stuff that I don't feel that comfortable with, and then we're going to go into why, despite all of that, I'm still excited. And I hope that this all makes sense at the end, and this ends up being a pretty fun conversation for your Wednesday before we have our podcast tonight. That being said, folks, before we do anything else, we do have a sponsor today. This video is sponsored by Arzopa. They have sent me a 16.1-inch, 144 hertz, 1080p portable gaming monitor. You can be using this with all of your systems. Of course, today we'll be using it with the Nintendo Switch 2. So let's go ahead and get this bad boy set up. As you can see, we're sitting here rocking in Donkey Kong Bonanza, playing our Switch 2. The Arzopa 1080p monitor does come with multiple USB-C ports on the side. A mini HDMI that goes to a full HDMI does come with that cable. This monitor covers 106% of the sRGB standard. You can go ahead and find this portable monitor for yourself down in the description through a link. And again, I want to thank Arzopa for sponsoring today's video. Thanks again to Arzopa. I do appreciate it. Portable monitor is going to be coming with me to PAX West, so I'm pretty excited to get some extra use out of it. Now, what we're going to be talking about here is just going to be between me and you guys. Just me here, no images, no nothing, just me having a conversation. Nintendo has made a lot of very interesting decisions, bad decisions, I would say, this year. And some of these decisions are, well, all of them are driven by money, but some of the decisions are driven in a way that isn't 100% their fault. There's other factors involved, like when Nintendo's increasing prices. Look, if there wasn't a bunch of weird things going on in the economy and tariffs and whatever else going on. Maybe these price changes never happen, but either way, Nintendo could eat the cost, right? They could eat the cost, especially with Switch 1 stuff. I don't find any excuse there. You've already made billions and billions and many tens of billions of dollars off of Switch 1 at this point. I feel like you can just kind of eat the losses, and if you're only selling at cost, you're only selling at cost. It is what it is. But I just don't, feel like they need to do that. I can understand why someone were Xbox, where they don't get a lot of sales anyways. When they do get a sale, maybe they want to increase the price. I understand PlayStation, they're in the middle of their generation, but Switch has now been technically like replaced with a better thing called Switch 2. I just don't feel like raising those prices is the right move. You could just eat the losses, or maybe reduce your SKUs. Instead of having a Switch Lite, a base Switch, and a Switch OLED, maybe reduce down to just like the Switch Lite and the Switch OLED, but then maintain the pricing structure and just kind of eat it on those a little bit, because look, you're going to make money back off the software anyways. You're going to come ahead. So that's just my 2 cents, obviously, on that front, especially when you got big games coming up like Pokemon Legends EA, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Tomodachi Life next year. Like, those softwares are going to sell really well on Nintendo Switch 1. And because of that, I just kind of feel like just eat the losses at this point. But whatever, Nintendo's doing it because they want to make money. That's one of their more recent decisions that I really do disagree with. Even if I can understand from a business perspective, you're probably just passing off the increased cost to the consumer. But this is one of those situations where I can understand it with Switch 2. I can't understand it with Switch 1. That's just my stance there. Obviously, next up is other things. Just stick with the price point. The Switch 2 being $450. That's the one thing that I'm not actually that upset about. Look at how much the Switch OLED is now. Things are just not as cheap to make as they once were. And so I'm not actually that upset about this price point. And it really just falls in line with what they charge for things like a Steam Deck and stuff like that anyway. So I'm actually okay with it. The $450 price point doesn't bother me. The $80 price point for Mario Kart World, on the other hand, it does bother me. Now, in the past, it didn't bother me heading into launch because I have reason to have faith in Nintendo with their games. The whole reason I even play a Nintendo system isn't the system itself. It's the Nintendo games. Games are why I do any of this, why I even have this YouTube channel. It's all about the video games. And heading into launch, I kind of figured there's probably enough going on in this game for it to be $80. Like, I can deal with having less tracks, I can deal with having less this, but that open world mode must have a lot more to it. There must be, and that was just all assumptions I had because I had faith in Nintendo's development teams. And by no means am I saying that Mario Kart World is a bad game, but I have it. I've played a lot of it. And let me just say, I am thrilled that I got it in a bundle. I was a little nervous about that $80 price feeling worth it. And I actually feel satisfied with the bundle price. I do not feel satisfied knowing that some people are spending $80 on a game that I don't think is worth $80. I'm not even trying to compare it to what Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe does bring up a point about other things that Nintendo's doing with pricing that I find to be weird. Coming up here, we got Kirby and the Forgotten Land DLC. No problem with that DLC being $20. A little bit of a problem with that game being $80 on Switch 2 to buy it brand new. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was Mario Kart 8 plus its DLC from the Wii U, right? All put together for the original selling price of Mario Kart 8. It was $60, the standard price for games. Why can't Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus the DLC for Switch 2 also be $60? Fine. Maybe you want to do 70 because maybe 70 is now the new standard since you kind of put that out there with Donkey Kong Bonanza. Fine. Even 70. Why isn't it that? Why isn't it the old game plus the DLC where it actually makes it $10 cheaper? I feel like this is just a pure greed move by Nintendo. I felt this way this whole time. Same with the Zelda games. I know the Zelda games, like, I didn't have to buy the upgrades. I bought the Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition because it is my favorite game. I'm kind of a sucker. I know. Gave in. Go, say whatever. I just think that these strategies are weird. And this is what happens when Nintendo's on top. Like, they were trying to come from behind before it was Switch. So they were doing more pro-consumer pricing structures, not throughout the entire Switch gen, but really that first year. And now that they're on top, they just are going to overcharge. And well, look, I don't think Kirby and the Forgotten Land being $80 on Switch 2 is going to kill the game because a majority of the sales for that game have already happened. But you get a little nervous that, like, oh, if they charge that for that plus the DLC, are they going to dare for Kirby and the Forgotten Land 2 also charge $80? I don't think so. I think they'll probably more hedge towards the $70 price point. And even then, is it going to feel worth it? Donkey Kong Bonanza, to me, felt worth it for $70. Like that feels like a game. Okay, that feels like a really premium experience, but that feels like a more premium experience than Mario Kart Worlds. So $80 games, I'm not a fan. I'm not saying a game can never justify $80. I've definitely spent more than $80 on games before, but I want more. Like, I expect more, and maybe Nintendo will give us that more someday to make the price feel worth it. But right now, I've yet to touch an $80 game that's a standard price that felt worth it for that $80. 70, yeah, and that's pushing it a bit, but you know, Donkey Kong Bonanza was worth it. I've played other AAA games that were worth 70, so I can, $80. I'd like to see that kind of slowly go away here. And again, you speak with your wallets by just never buying those $80 versions, right? You can perfectly enjoy these games at cheaper prices. Mario Kart World is going to be a little tricky once there's no more bundles. The bundles will probably come back every holiday, so maybe my suggestion is if you really want Mario Kart World, just wait for the holiday bundles, but that's neither here nor there. Now, other things Nintendo has done that I don't like, and chief among it is just some of the policies they have in place. None of these policies are great. They're not like deal breaking for me, but they're not fantastic. Things like their ability to, I don't want to use the brick the system. That was the story back then, but more so disable your system's ability to use online, not just the account, but the actual system. System is still technically usable with physical Switch 2 games, but that's a whole other thing we'll get into in a moment. But obviously I don't like those policies. I don't think they're good. I wish that they couldn't even legally exist. But they can legally exist, and so they do legally exist. There are some places where that policy doesn't apply. Certain countries in Europe, they're actually not allowed to enact that policy, so they don't there. And the problem with this policy and all this stuff is things where people get accidentally swept in. Like you buy used games, and the used games get flagged because maybe somebody dumped them and it's online somewhere, but that's not your fault. You just bought the used copy from the store or a friend or eBay or wherever. Your system also gets swept up and banned. That's not good. I want to be clear, this doesn't happen very often, and so I am pretty dismissive of how serious this is in the sense that this is actually going to be a widespread problem, because this was also happening on Switch. And notice how there wasn't a bunch of headlines made about it when it happened on Switch, because there's so many Switch units out there that a one-off person on Reddit having a problem didn't feel like as big of a deal when there's 150 million people playing Switch, right? Like, it's like, oh, one person out of this many doesn't feel like a real problem. Well, there's not as many Switch 2s, so every person that has an issue, it stands out more. I still stand by that, but that doesn't mean that it's a good policy. I would like to see it go away. PlayStation has the same policy. I think Xbox might have the same policy as well. I would like to see these policies go away, and I am a firm believer that one of the ways to do that is to get legal change done, get the laws updated that would, do like what Stop Killing Games is trying to do, like would fundamentally change what companies are allowed and not allowed to do, and make policies like this not applicable. Kind of like how, they could have all those warranty stickers here in the US and you're not supposed to open your device or it voids your warranty. That's actually against the law. They can't do that. So even if it says that, you could freely open your device, take the screw off, look at it, put it back on, screw it back in, and they still have to cover it under warranty so long as you didn't do any damage when you opened it. Now, there's going to be sticky cases. We're going to say because you opened it, you did damage. I understand that. That's a whole legal process. But the point is that you're allowed to do that. They can't legally enforce anything there. And that's what I would like to see happen here with a policy like that. There's other things we could go over, but obviously one of the chief things is obviously game key cards. And yes, I know. Go ahead and yell at me. I have some game key cards right here. I got Bravely Default and Yakuza 0. All right. I have these two game key cards. I don't really ever plan to buy another game key card again. But I have to say about the game key cards, and this is probably why some people aren't as mad about game key cards. A lot of people have already accepted that the all digital future is coming. They already buy their games primarily on the eShop, and then they view key cards as a way to maybe get some resale value. I get it. I understand that sentiment. Some people are already all in on all digital. If you're on PC, you've pretty much been all digital for decades, right? But obviously there's this general concern that, well, like any digital thing, eventually the shop will be down and the download servers will be gone and the games will go away. That's a valid concern. It's a valid concern for all digital in the first place. But what sucks is there's actually physical games. Like, if there was no physical games and everything was a key card, you'd be like, fine, we're just in that all digital universe. That sucks. There'll be a lot of backlash. But we do have physical games. This Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition that I mentioned I bought, and way overpriced. Yeah, that's a full physical game, right? We get to things like Cyberpunk, full physical game. So the thing is, there are full physical games. So all it's really doing is confusing the marketplace, making you have to look for these things on the bottom right here to let you know that this is a key card and not an actual physical copy. And not everyone's going to notice that when they buy games, grandparents, people buying presents for people. They're not all going to see that either. And obviously, it's frustrating because a lot of this is probably caused by Nintendo only offering 64 gigabyte cards. I know we don't know that like 100% factually for sure, but it's pretty much well accepted that that's all they're really providing. And I know there's an update right now. They might be offering other sizes, maybe by next year that could enable companies to maybe want to choose more physical if they're noticing a huge drop off in physical sales because of game key cards. But the point more so is I'm not really a huge fan of them. I can understand why some people defend them because if you're already all digital anyways, this is just an additional digital option that gives you some resale value. And some people are just willing to accept that all digital is something that's coming. I mean, PlayStation and Xbox literally have digital only platforms you can buy, and they push them pretty hard. And they usually make them the cheaper options. Or you buy a PlayStation 5 Pro, it doesn't come with a disc drive, right? That's something you have to buy on top. So yeah, this is just the world we live in with this stuff. Now, this is where we come back around and I talk about why, despite all of this stuff, I still really enjoy Nintendo. And the largest reason that I still really enjoy Nintendo is the reason that I play video games really goes back to my childhood. There were anti-consumer decisions happening back then. There were things like blood getting changed colors, games getting banned, lawsuits going on, violence being blamed on games, really dumb policies, a whole bunch of stuff. But I just didn't care about that stuff as a kid, right? As a kid, I just went to Blockbuster, rented games, and just really enjoyed playing GoldenEye or even Quest 64, Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, played a lot of Age of Empires on PC and stuff. I just really enjoyed playing video games. I wasn't thinking all the time about all of this other stuff that might be going on. And part of that's because the internet wasn't as big, but also part of it is just I wasn't aware. All I wanted to do was play games and not think about that. And now that I'm an adult and I do this for a living and I'm sitting here talking games every day and about the news, I realize that obviously people mature and they start to care about more different things out there, other things that impact their life that are just, might impact video games and then can impact you in other ways. But I've kept that same mentality, and it's unfortunate. A lot of people out there will call for me to take a stance and try to, boycott Nintendo and talk about how bad they are. But the bottom line is that as long as they keep making games I want to play, I'm going to keep buying them because I want to play them. The same reason I played video games as a kid is the same reason I played. I didn't think about the cost back then. I just enjoyed the game. And as long as they keep making games I enjoy, like Donkey Kong Bonanza as a great example, I'm going to want to continue to play, even if it feels like they're squeezing you in many other aspects. Because ultimately, those other aspects don't matter to me. I don't really buy used games anymore. I haven't been that kind of person for a long time. I'm not afraid of all digital. I've been doing that on PC for decades. And honestly, I'm a grown-ass adult, and I have adult money. And it's up to me if I decide what is worth that money or not. I haven't seen Fantastic Four yet in theaters because I'm not sure if I'm going to like it enough to justify spending that money. Same thing with the new Jurassic World movie that I'm interested in seeing, but I'm not so sure that the cost of me going to the movie theater is going to be worth it for my entertainment. But there's other movies, like I went and saw Superman. It felt worth my cost. And I really am glad I went. Same thing with video games. I can know I might like something, but then wait for discounts. I'll give you an example of a company that I used to buy almost all their games, and I haven't bought one in a long time. Ubisoft. I used to buy Just Dance and the Assassin's Creeds. I used to buy the Far Cries and all the other games that they would put out. Outside of one Prince of Persia side-scrolling game like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I haven't bought a Ubisoft game since Sparks of Hope, and before that, Mario and Rabbids. I just have not been buying Ubisoft games hardly at all the last decade when they used to be something that I purchased all the time. Why? Because to me, the quality of the experience has come down. It's not about the Ubisoft crappy decisions and their crappy business decisions. I just found myself not enjoying their games as much. So I stopped buying them. And so that's where it comes around to Nintendo. I'm still really enjoying their games. Switch was one of my favorite generations due to the games. The games were so good and I had so much fun. And Nintendo, at least in terms of, well, as of Donkey Kong Bonanza, is doing the same thing. They're still giving me these amazing experiences that I know I would regret if I just didn't play it because I want to make some sort of stance about how anti-consumer they are, when I've kind of realized that they've been anti-consumer this entire time, as have pretty much all big corporations. But I choose what is going to entertain me. And ultimately, everything comes back to the game. So yeah, I don't think Mario Kart is worth $80 yet. I don't think Nintendo should disable your systems. Also, I don't buy used games. I'll probably never have my system disabled. I never modify my platforms. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to do those things. You should. But I am at my midlife. Maybe call it a midlife crisis. I don't know, but I'm at my midlife. I just want to play games and have fun. But because I am a content creator and I'm in this world of news and I'm covering this stuff and I'm getting excited about it, you know, you're going to get the other side coming along with it. And that's okay. But I think that's why all of us are still here. I'm not saying that any of us agree with every decision Nintendo makes. I think criticism is warranted. But I also think it's warranted to remember why we're even here talking about Nintendo in the first place. It's because we love their games. We're having a lot of fun with them. Now we'll see what's next because we're all waiting on that next Nintendo Direct, right? We all want that thing to happen so we could finally get dates about more games that we're actually excited for. For right now, I'm kind of like looking forward to trying out Madden tomorrow on my Switch 2. I did get the expensive bundle version, which I might instantly regret if it has no crossplay. I'm very nervous about that, but I took a shot in the dark because we haven't had Madden in like 13 years on a Nintendo platform. So we'll see what happens, because what scares me is if it doesn't have crossplay, then I got to buy a second copy over on Xbox. I won't buy the big expensive one, but you know, it's expensive anyways. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next video.